Imagine the Hoenn region with 100+ new Fakemon. On top of this, there's new areas that have been added, gym leaders that have swapped places with each other, as well as Elite Four members, which basically acts as an alternate universe to Pokemon Emerald. But the game itself is no walk in the park. It's actually pretty hard as there's no real way to grind, and I'm limiting myself to using only the new Pokemon, which, by the way, look absolutely awesome. Before we jump into the video, let's try to smash 8,000 likes. And don't forget to subscribe right there down there as well, because it's time for us to jump right into Pokemon Emerald Z. First, this. Today's video is sponsored by the best browser, Opera GX. Throw out everything else. No more Chrome, no more Internet Explorer. I don't even know why you'd be using that in the first place, because let's be honest, just like a Snorlax, they just eat up all of your PC resources. Well, not anymore with the GX control feature. It actually enhances the performance on your PC when gaming with your browser open, and to get rid of lag while playing games and listening to music, which is perfect when you want to keep a couple of documents open when you're hardcore nuzlocking one of your Pokemon games. On top of that, the panel also lets users limit the amount of CPU or RAM they are willing to let their browser use, and other browsers most of the time don't have customization abilities. So let me introduce you to GX mods. These offer a ton of customization. With just one click of a button, your entire browser will do a 360 and turn into something beautiful like this Emerald one I personally got. It really resonated with me because Pokemon Emerald is my favorite childhood game. And here you've got background music, keyboard sounds, opening and closing tab sounds, theme and colors of the browser, mods, dedicated wallpapers, disabling and enabling mods, and individual modifications in the mods menu, which are all available from the sidebar. Opera GX is also smarter than any other browser because it has generative AI integrations like ChatGPT or ChatSonic. I asked it a couple of questions about Cobblemon, and boom, I had my answer. For all things gaming, you can go to the GX corner to stay up to date with free games, as they actively search for the best deals, newest releases, and breaking gaming news. And I know switching a browser can be a pain, but Opera GX makes it faster than Deoxys Speed with a quick import tool which will take all of your passwords, browsing history, bookmarks, and cookies, and ports it over to GX with just one click of a button. So what are you even waiting for? The next Pokemon release? Go and download Opera GX right now with my link, which you can find in the description below. A big thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back into it. Now, as we take a look at the intro, we see that the Pokemon aren't different, only that the professor now has a banana. It's good to see that at least somebody's being healthy around here. Considering that almost everything is scrambled around, I decided to do the same thing with my name. As we step into our house, we see that the movers are not Vigoroths or Machokes, they're Bewares this time. I put my clock's time to nowhere near where I live, harassed my neighbors, and helped out a screaming old guy. He told me to grab his bag and look at his balls so that I could choose which Pokemon I wanted to start out with. And there's some very cool choices here. You've got the Hornwhale Oghall, the Ashbird Charcrow, and finally the Tumble Pokemon Scrimulch. All three of these looked very intriguing to me, but I decided to go with the Firebird, a fast special attacker that will surely come in handy once we find out who the first gym leader really is going to be. I then put a dog on fire, PETA got involved, and they took me away to a lab to test my brain. But the only thing that came out of it was corn, so that's what I named my bird. I decided to hightail it to Maze straight away, but that was not smart of me, because Oghall totally destroyed me. So I grinded up in the grass to level 7 and fried myself that whale, so had some good dinner that evening. I shared it with my mom, who in return gave me some running shoes, which means we can now zoom around the region. As I headed into the mysterious world of Pokemon, I immediately found two new team members, starting out with Weibo, the bow spider Pokemon, named Itzy, who's like the early game bug in most games. The second one was Wincher, an ice type that I really didn't use all that much, because ice types suck. I wanted to make a quick stop at my dad's gym, but as it turns out, he's been changed around with this punkhead named Sydney. I guess being demoted from the Elite Four to the 5th gym leader really makes hair loss apparent. We helped this guy Wally capture his first Pokemon, which turned out to be a Drumble, which is a cute little dragon type. And once we are done with that, Sydney tells me that my dad will be proud of me, and then kicks me out of his gym into the nearby forest, where we capture our next team member, Nectaire, who's a grass flying type, pretty fast, and hits like a truck with special attacks, so we named him Slurp. We run into some forest pirates, which I thought were only available at sea, and destroy their Pokemon, who apparently go up until Generation 9. That's right, if you want to play through this game with Generation 9 Pokemon, you can. After that, I got pretty tired, so I captured myself a Chillo, an ice type that resembles sleeping on the cold side of the pillow, and let's be honest, is there anything better than that? With sides on the team, I shortly after had my very first evolution, and it was my starter who turned into Graven. Inside of Rosboro City, there's also a guy that sells you eggs with his Delibird, so I decided to pick one up and head to the local gym, who's now not led by Roxanne, but Brawly. But once I got my bird out against his crab brawler, I realized that I copy stat changes with the opportunist ability. So once he used the power punch, my attack would also raise, and I could just wing attack this crab into the next dimension. The next two Pokemon, Clobbopus and Fistiscuff, got RKO'd the same way, and with that, our first gym badge was acquired. We go into a cave, get ambushed by some more pirates, and steal their Wingull, who he even used against me in battle, and I still can't believe I fought someone as famous as Pico. But once we gave him back to Mr. Briny, everything was alright again, until we got kidnapped by the mayor, who forced me to pick up some scrap metal, which is apparently liked by a certain Pokemon, but I'm not gonna lie, I never found out which one. We then made some business calls, destroyed May once again, and took the boat to Dewford Town without knowing what challenges were awaiting us there. I quickly found out that there's two new areas added. One of them is a little grass patch with some new encounters, and the other one is a sand encounter, where I found a little toxic waste slug. Then it was time to enter everybody's favorite cave where Steven Stone is normally waiting for you, but before we reach him, I captured a Playmite, which is basically just a Lego brick, so I named him Lego Star, because who didn't love Lego Star Wars video games or toys as a kid? I have closets full of them. Then give letter to Steven, take the boat to Slateport, ruin everybody's beach day, and hatch that egg I got in Rosboro, which turned out to be a Helioptile, so useless to me. On Route 110, I found more new Pokemon, like a Grenade, which is a fire grass type that will explode if you don't watch out, and Cotton the glove Pokemon, who's just a regular normal type, but with the static ability. After finding a literal UFO on the beach, I knew I had to get out of there because I thought I was going insane, so I bonked my head against some trees with the move Headbutt to try and get my 5% Drumble encounter. After about 15 minutes of bonking, I finally got my little dragon boy, and after giving her the name Bobber, went through the darkness of the second gym just to find out the leader was Juan. He only had 3 Pokemon starting off with a Lombre, so I let off with Slurp and set up some growths. I was able to get +2 in special attack, which allowed me to Mega Drain and Air Cutter his entire team, which then consisted of a Tatsugiri and a Purifin, which is literally a cola bottle that was wasted at sea. And we all know what comes next. Stop Team Aqua's raid at the museum, only this time after defeating the 2 grunts, you have to also defeat their leader, Archie. But luckily, just before the battle, Bober evolved into its second evolution, giving him a much needed buff in stats. But we didn't even need him, as Slurp is once again putting in big work with growth as it takes down Wailmer with Mega Drain. Following up is Carvana, then a new Pokemon named Diretum, not sure what typing it is, and finally a Dynamo that gets Mega Drained as well. With that, the pirates are gone and we get to access a new area, literally. Normally this is an event-only area in Emerald, but now there is this little statue inside of it, and if you give in the right password, the entire cave will fill up with starter Pokemon, allowing me to capture the other 2 starters, Scrimulch and Aquall. Unfortunately, I didn't really get the best natures on them, but I'll fix that once I get access to Mint. Now, I know what you're asking yourself. Is the May fight as hard in this game as it is normally? Well, let's see. She already has more and more Pokemon, starting off with a Nidorino, who easily gets taken out. Korn's Ominous Winds even giving me a special attack boost in the process. Narwhal comes in, and I try to use a Hex on it to kill it, but even a critical hit isn't enough, and we finally get finished off. Which means Bober is then strong enough to finish it off with Breaking Swipe, but also take down Groddle and Fletchinder with the same move. Having a Dragon type this early on is definitely nice, so I'm actually quite happy I broke my brains on those trees. Once May biked away in tears, I then started annoying Fisherman until my little bird evolved into Sorup. And even though it doesn't look like a final evolution, sadly enough, this is it. It doesn't become cooler than this. Shortly after, we reach Mauville City, which is a great place to grind because it has has an abundance of trainers around it. But it's also notorious for one of the easiest rival battles ever against Wally, only this time he has more than just a little Ralt. But first, Boo evolved into Bass Keedle, and I'm not gonna lie, this guy is turning out to be something pretty cool. Can't wait for you to see his final evolution, which is even better. Wally himself, on the other hand, has a very interesting arsenal of Pokemon. A banana, a glove, his little dragon guy, and a literal garden gnome, so I guess he kind of likes collecting rubbish. But hey, to each his own, I still destroying and clear the path to the gym for myself. But before we find out who replaces our beloved Watson, we first evolve Jolt into Narwhal and then run into a trainer with a Tarantailor who can literally make an entire suit for me in the span of 2 minutes. Inside of Turf, the contest hall has been changed to a manor, which is a very dark and creepy place with a couple of Pokemon that we could capture, like Kitterwall, who is literally the spitting image of my cat Joey, and its mortal enemy Rattan, who's a normal ghost type. Now into an entire new chapter of my life, soft-locking yourself in a gym without saving. Yeah, this is amazing. I don't know how this even happened, but now I have to do a ton of progress again. Thank you, new barriers. Once we crawled our way back from the ashes, we eventually reached the gym leaders, Tate and Liza. That's right, they put up the barriers, and it was all in their plan to softlock me all along. So now it was time for me to take my revenge on the twins. They start off with two pretty cool looking Pokemon, Cyclops and Thinkblot. I was switching between Ominous Wind and Incinerate on Corn and was just spamming Breaking Swipe with Bober. They basically wasted their time by setting up Light Screams and Reflects and also using Super Potions to heal their Pokemon back up, which in the end allowed me to finish both of them off in the same turn. The next two, however, were a little bit harder, both forms of Meowstic. These two combined were able to take down 4 of my 6 team members until it was finally 2 against 1 with Rattan and Slurp. Since we're both doubling up into the same slot, this fight became a lot easier from that moment on, and Tate and Liza decided to give me my 3rd gym badge. On these next couple of routes, there's obviously a ton of trainers for me to defeat, so this granted me access to the evolution Possessum. Then, inside of the Ashy route, I got 2 more Pokemon named Verminion, which is a grasshopper, but I also got a boot named Athlace, and just outside of Falador in the grass, I got my own Banana and Lemon. This was the time of the fruits for sure, so don't forget to eat your fruits, ladies and gentlemen. It's important. Inside of Meteor Falls, we did some evil team stuff until they eventually went to the volcano, which we technically also have to go to, but we have much more urgent stuff to attend to. And that consists of catching some more Pokemon like Cyclops, Snowytall, and Meduzap. And just outside of Meteor Falls, there was a trainer that wanted to take me on with this squid Pokemon that changes color every time it uses a different move with the protein ability, which I thought was pretty interesting and cool, so here you go. Color-changing squid. Now get ready to grab some ice cream because we're standing at the edge of a volcano while confronting a madman named Maxie who wants to throw this meteorite in to summon Godzilla. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is not happening when I have Slurp the bird by my side. He starts off with a new Pokemon named Morostache. I didn't really know what to do against it, so I was able to set up 3 growths. Then I proceeded to Giga Drain it, basically get all of my health back, and proceeded to the next Pokemon. Ninetales, who got one-shotted by Air Cutter, Camerupt, who survived a Giga Drain with 1 HP, countered back with a Lava Plume, which forced me out into my Whale. The Whale itself just needed 2 Bubble Beams to finish off the Camerupt after a Super Potion, and the final Pokemon, Bramblin, got frozen by Aurora Beams. While I was heading down the mountain to Lava Ridge, I grabbed 2 more Pokemon, Blastock and the Fist guy, and then I got my ass beat by the next gym leader about 15 times in a row, so I knew I had to do some grinding in the Fiery Path to evolve Jolt into its final form, Setizer, who will be incredibly useful against this mysterious gym leader named Roxanne, who's then starting off with her Bulldor, who takes major damage from my shoe. However, she manages to scratch my Jays and I have to bring out Jolt to snipe shot it. For the next Pokemon Leap, I swap out into my Fiery Bird and use Oil Fire, which is a move that does more damage in rain, but not that it really matters all that much because I only had to get 1 off before I bring my Will back out, Aurora Beam the plant, and snipe shot the incoming Aerodactyl twice because it missed a Rock Slide, bringing out our final Pokemon, Foster Raptor. And even though its rocks were too much for my Will, I still have a bird in the back that's ready to slurp up all of the egg juice. Which means the Stone Badge is ours, but once we get outside, we also get a nice pair of goggles from May, which means we can now enter the desert. And if you love cleaning your house, you're going to love Spirit Clean because it's a literal vacuum cleaner. A bug ground type that's incredibly fast, but besides that, it's not really all that special. But somebody asked me to clean up the desert tower, and while I was doing so with my vacuum, I somehow stumbled upon an ancient egg. So I picked it up, left the tower, and went to the revival guide to get my very own foster raptor. And let's be honest, this thing has a lot of resemblances to Chansey. And because I had to prepare for the next gym leader, which is also my dad's replacement, Sydney, I decided to go back to the desert and grind up a bit. And so Damn Daniel evolved into Athlete, who's ready to stomp on you with its spikes, and straight after, Corn into the mysterious looking Raven, who learns the move Smoke Bomb, which is basically a ghost type U-turn. And I'm not gonna lie, since I'm a fan of Honchkrow, I really love this guy's design too. With those two, I went back to Sydney and still got my ass whooped a couple of times before I eventually found the winning strategy to taking down his very menacing dark types. And even though my shoe became a couple of sizes bigger, it still wasn't able to take down his oversized dog with low sweeps, as Psychic Fangs were too strong for my fighting ground type. Apparently, Jolt's signal beams were all I needed once it healed up with a potion, and his very weird looking cat went down to a stun gun and a snipe shot critical hit. Two more stun guns on the Pokemon we were just talking about, Honchkrow, but then a non-dark type came out, namely the little monkey Grafai, who was able to take down my whale, but also my vacuum cleaner, so I had to finish it off with my fiery bird. The last Pokemon, Lokix, took an oil fire to the face before lashing out on my bird and Lego Star, so I had to end its misery with my air-cuttering Slurp. Sydney is going to relay to my dad that I managed to beat him, which is going to make him incredibly proud because he's been wanting to face me someday for his entire life, basically. But first we get the HM for Surf, which I quickly want to touch on as well. You have to teach your HMs to your Pokemon, which is kind of unfortunate in today's climate of ROM hacks, because in some situations that just means your movesets aren't going to be optimal for certain fights. For example, I had to get rid of Snipe Shot, which I actually prefer over Surf because of its critical hit ratio. Another quick pit stop at my house to pick up the Shiny Charm, which was apparently on my desk this entire time. I had no idea, but I can guarantee that there's at least going to be one Shiny in this video, but you're going to have to keep watching if you want to find out which one. While surfing, we fought some very interesting fish, from dead ones to on fire ones, but also electrocuted and samurai fish. Considering I don't really like eating fish, I decided to move on to the abandoned ship to grab a map there named Allywag, but also to fight my immortal enemy, Matrice. Straight after, we had two evolutions, namely a wall of bricks named Construct, but also my final starter, Scaraback, who turned into a rock grass type, and this is by far my favorite design of the three starters. But let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them. Quite a lot of grinding had to be done before we headed over to the Weather Institute, so I decided to hatch the egg that I got in Lava Ridge Town, but it turned out to be a Poipole, a Pokemon that I would love to use, but unfortunately am not allowed to. However, I am allowed to use Draborate, my newly acquired evolution that kind of looks like an upside down axe of some kind. We run into some more Pokemon that we've never seen before, like a Carrot, a Drum Snail, and Koboom, who wiped my entire team. I guess he was kind of mad in the head. But you know what was even more mad? Destroying Shelly with just wood hammers. And then a scientist just hands me a dog. Like, I don't want to use this. Let me move on to the May fight. Speaking of May, a pretty easy battle if you have a whale on the team. She might have a Nidoking that gets absolutely served, and it is able to poison me with a Bar Barrage, which unfortunately for her isn't enough to save her Grottle from a signal beam, but the damage did rack up once Morgrun came out. I hit one last serve before the poison damage became my demise. I bounced on its head with my axe and threw some rocks at her Fire Bird with Dino Sea, and even her Narwhal, who should be super effective against my Dino Bird, was just using signal beam, which gave me the opportunity to use ancient power and win against our longtime rival. Of course, it's time to meet up with Steven straight after this, but that's not that important. Apparently, you can see your reflection while you're on this bridge. I had never known that before. Tune in next week for more useless facts with Zwiggo. We also find the Ice Climber's dad, Expolar, and evolve our Cyclops into Cyphemus. And he might look like a physical attacker, but he's better on the special side. Surprise, surprise. What's another surprise is the 6 takes Gym Leader, who's now been replaced with Phoebe. She leads off with Sableye, and my lead is Corn. I immediately go for the Smoke Bomb and swap in my Whale to surf it twice. Dusknoir also takes 2 surfs to the face before I have to swap in Boo, but then he gets scared and goes into Marowak, who gets wood hammered. Persistem also dies to a Mountain Tackle, which is basically a rock type jump kick, 100 base power, but if you miss, you take a huge portion of damage. Persistem also gets taken out, but Mimikyu forces me to swap out into Dino C, who can then clean up with 2 more Spirit Breaks. And boom! Tomb Badge is ours, which means we can grab some more Pokemon on the upcoming routes, which consist of Bonford and Gnomad. But I also ran into a trainer with the evolution of Verminion named Abdominion. And man, he goes from a pretty cool Grasshopper to a Dragon Bug type Mantis. We ran into an experiment that went wrong. I guess Blaine doesn't only make Dittos and Mews, this might also be one of his creations. And we also capture a Varanox, a poison dragon type that's going to turn into something awesome. Dare I say it, Jurassic. Inside of the Safari Zone, there was one area with a Pokemon I didn't have yet, which turned out to be a Giron, a fire psychic type Smith. Then in Mount Pyre, I grabbed my first bug ghost type Catavillar, who is going to turn into something that's going to shred the competition. On top of Mount Pyre, we take down some submarines and grab the magma emblem while Archie runs off with one of the orbs. And while you won't see Mornin's last evolution yet, here is his second one, Halitox. After this, I really wanted to enter the mall, but May was hogging up all the space, so we had to show her who looks best in green. Boom, Vacuum cleans up Nidoking with Sand Slam. Talonflame got put to sleep by Dynasty's Lullaby and killed with rocks. Her Avatar Universe Island Turtle comes in, so I lunged with 2 of my Pokemon to swap out into Setizer, which turned out to be a mirror match. After a lot of electrocuting, mine came out on top, and Mornin killed Grimmsnarl. Imposter Ditto came in, and now I was up against my own Pokemon, so Dynasty had to come in and use Ancient Power to get May out of her shopping addiction. Now get ready to put on your summer clothes, cause it's about to get hot in the Team Magma hideout. However, something pretty important happened here. We capture a new Pokemon named Escargot, but also our very first shiny Giron, the Genie Smith. However, even with this shiny, our luck stopped immediately after. My team was absolutely not ready to face a giant like Maxie. My team was ridiculously outmatched by his, and I wouldn't say it's because of the type matchups, it's because grinding in this game is just an absolute pain. So I had to head back over to the daycare, put 2 of my Pokemon in there, and fight the surrounding trainers over and over again. This has been a technique I've been using since I was a kid, and I'm glad to see it still works. But that does mean that I can show you some awesome evolutions like Juroxic, the Toxic Raptor. Definitely my top 5 favorites from this game, really like it. But also our shiny Forgenie, who's now got a shiny golden lamp, and finally the strongest Pokemon we will acquire in this game, Entomortis. And while I'm not the biggest fan of its design, believe me, this thing is about to carry. As we go back to Maxie and try to shove him into that volcano. But first, Gravedigger swords dances up on his first Pokemon, then lunges because it's part Dark type, which takes it out in just a single hit. But because of the Tangled Hair ability, my speed was lowered, which meant Brambleghast could outspeed and kill me with Errant Drift, a new move that works basically like a Ghost type acrobatics, so no item being held is double the power. I thought let's try out Smithlord, but that was not a great idea. But Mountain Tackle with Boo was a great idea. Hydro Pump with Jolt was also a great idea against the Camel, but Ninetales' Moonblast was just too much for him and my Raptor. However, I was able to hit a Sludge Bomb, and I found out that Ninetales is now a Fairy Fire type. Not that it matters too much, because Corn can finish it off with the last Pokemon. Gorgawad is once again able to force me out into my last Pokemon, who can then use Woodhammer and finish off this battle. Definitely one of the hardest in the game by far, in my opinion. After this, we failed to stop Team Aqua shenanigans, however, as they leave in their stolen submarine. In the meantime, let's head to Moss Deep and see who our gym leader there is. And if you guessed Drake, you were right. It's time to take on his mighty dragons. Not gonna lie, seeing him as a gym leader is pretty cool, and I'm just glad this isn't a double battle anymore. Yet again, I thought I was going to dig a grave with Swords Dance, but after taking out his first Pokemon, Salamence came out, which lowered my attack with Intimidate and put a stop to my plans. So then I thought, why don't I Aurora Beam through everything? But then a Kingdra showed up in my path. While I was able to stun gun it 2 more times, I then had to bring in Boo, Mountain Tackle it, and the next 2 Pokemon, Gyarados and Abdominion, to finish off the 7th gym battle, which was honestly pretty easy compared to all the rest of them. Now, normally you have to save the Space Center from Team Magma, but this time they have partnered up with Team Aqua to try and complete their goal together. Don't know why, because their goals are literally the opposite of each other, but it's pretty cool to see them on the same side, even though Maxie is not here because they've been replaced with regular grunts. After I beat them up, they were apparently going to backstab each other. So I guess it's pretty good that we managed to put a stick into their plans. Then we grab the HM for dive, go into the cavern, ruin my Pokemon's moveset with Rock Smash, Strength, and everything else you need in here, and then the fight with Archie, which wasn't anything special. He had mostly water types, but the thing that really stood out to me was Eruptide, who kind of looks like an underwater lava thing. But to be honest, all of these Pokemon were incredibly easy for me to beat, definitely after Gravedigger got last respects. But then the pirate put the planet in danger by shooting Kyogre off into space, and everybody started asking the help of a 10-year-old boy, even the league's champion, who took me to Sutupolis City and told me to walk into a cave. At the end, there was a weird man waiting for me, asking me a question about where the legendary snake could be. I said every possible option, but the only one he would accept was Sky Pillar, so that's where we're heading next. No real Pokemon here for us to capture, so we headed straight over there, woke him up, headed back to Sutupolis, put the 2 giants to sleep, and save the world. Then we make Maxie and Archie go to their knees and apologize to Steven for putting his beautiful region in danger. Now it was finally time to see who the last gym leader spot went to, and I was surprised to see that the ice was still remaining, but this already gave me a hint. After completing the path in just 1 go, we found out that it was in fact the Elite Four member Glacia. She starts off with an Abomasnow to set up the hail, and I lead off with Gravedigger, trying to sweep with Swords Dance again, but failing once Wall Rain comes out because it's just too bulky for my lunges to even put a dent in it. So I end up going down and using Stun Gun on Wall Rain instead. Extinguish takes me out with Aaron Drift, so I would hammer it with my Beetle, but his Igloo Brain Freeze psychics me. Smith-Lord, however, does finally get his first kill by frying the brain, but yeah, Mamoswine, he ain't surviving that. Corn, however, just needs a couple more heat waves to melt down Glacia's ice types, and I guess also her entire gym. With a Rhyme badge under our belt, we decide to go back to Lilico City and stock up on some supplies like some very useful TMs like Ice Beam, but also mints to give my Pokemon the right natures, because that's something we're definitely going to need for the league. Speaking of the league, it's not time for that yet. First, Victory Road and the Wally fight, who's honestly improved a lot since last time we saw him. He still has his stupid banana though, but we don't slip on it because Smith-Lord is able to burn it to pieces. Then we get Earthquake by his starter Draparade, and so we bring out our own Dragon type Mornin to Dragon Pulse it 2 times, but Notorious gets swapped in straight after, and I'm not going to lie, this thing is insanely strong, a Ground Fairy type, so counters me fully, and while I am able to poison it with a Sludge Bomb, I do go down to turn after. So Boo comes in, I try to Wood Hammer it, but it has an ability that negates Grass type moves and ups its special attack instead. And even though that happened, he still decided to swap out into his Pingushyn, who seems pretty happy despite having a ton of needles in him. So Corn Heat Waves it, while Jolt can Hydro Pump the Notorious. He then takes off his shoes and shows me his dirty pile of Socks, who is a electric normal type by the way. But my electric type is just a little bit better as we wash it away and clean them with Hydro Pump. Nudini makes my whale disappear, but I know all the magic tricks because with one last respects, Wally is done and we can go through Victory Road, which was not too long, but there is quite a big grinding session we have to do before we go into the league, which is around 65 to 70. That's what I want my team to be. And because I thought that Notorious was so cool and overpowered, I decided to add him to the team and replace our beautiful shiny Genie, who's been basically useless to us. And with my final team of Avengers assembled, I headed into the league and saw that the first Elite Four member was changed with Winona. I also really like that they changed around the room to fit her theme of flying type Pokemon more, but not as much as I love this Flamigo sprite. Unfortunately for it, it went down to a super effective Moonblast, and we did some major damage on the incoming Conflagrace, who is a fire dragon type. This majestic bird, however, was even able to take down my mountain, and Jolt can then finish it off with a couple more Hydro Pumps after she uses a full restore, but this leaves me with 8 HP, just enough for Togekiss to finish me off, and sadly enough, even my mountain tackling Beetle isn't able to take down the fairy flying type. However, Mornin's Sludge Bombs can put some big dents into her team, as well as my Errand Drifting Gravedigger and Korn's Flamethrowers. We have some nice fried bird for dinner, and move on to the second Elite Four member, Watson, who starts off with an Encrypted, and that's Earth Power, boom, done. Tikanton brings his big Hammer of Justice down on my Gnome's head. Considering that's super effective, he goes down, and Korn comes in to Flamethrower him, Electivire, Vikavolt, Zestatic, and almost the final Pokemon on Magnezone. If it wasn't for Sturdy, this would have been a clean sweep. Luckily, Boo just needs 2 more Earthquakes, and with that, Watson is defeated. Our next opponent is Flannery, and she's running a Drought team with a Torkoal who gets Earth-powered. Binomio, who still hasn't found his Juliet. But because of Chlorophyll, the next Pokemon Shiftry can outspeed and Leaf Blade me. That's when Korn comes in, who can get a special attack boost because of Opportunist and take down Shiftry, as well as the next Pokemon, the Flaming Fish. I hit an Air Slash on the incoming Volcarona as well, and I just have to say that even though Korn hasn't been that great throughout the series, he has already put in quite a bit of work in the Elite Four alone. But Morning can then clean up with Hurricane and do some decent damage with Sludge Bombs on Darmanitan. But not enough, so I have to take it out with a Mountain Tackle while Magmortar scorches me alive. Then it's up to Gravedigger and Jolt to take down this Magmortar with Stun Gun and Hydro Pump after she uses a full restore. With that, we only have one more battle remaining, and you might have already guessed who it's against. It's our old man, Norman. He's incredibly proud that we've reached this point in our journey, but he's not going to hold back even a few steps away from the champion. So let's give our dad the battle he truly deserves. We have 2 powerhouses against each other, only mine has the upper advantage as his Beware falls to 2 Moonblast. Mousehold comes in and uses Tidy Up and Population Bomb to then kill me. I use one more Mountain Tackle and the family of mouses is gone. Clefable shows me its power with Moonblast, so I have to bring in Morning and Sludge Bomb it. However, my dad has the perfect counter in the specially defensive wall Snorlax, so we use Toxic to rack up some damage and bring in Gravedigger to set up 3 Swords Dances and take out the mighty giant with lunges. He sends out his Ace, which is this huge shell snail Pokemon, and I forgot its normal type and I went for a ghost type move, so we're dead. Luckily for us, it's also part ground type, so one more Hydro Pump washes it away and the final Pokemon Weirdeer stands no chance. Our dad was surprised that we managed to beat him, so he steps aside because it's time to face the real champion of the Hoenn region, Steven Stone. He has taken his place back from Wallace and has a big strategy ready as he leads off with Glimmora. It is able to set up Stealth Rocks, which is going to cripple my team a bit, but I am also able to fill its mouth with water and take it out. Metagross comes in and I swap in Gravedigger, who does his job with Errand Drift, but then Kimiambit comes out. Don't know why he isn't keeping this until the end, but since I gave Mornin Fire Blast for this battle specifically, we can do some major damage, and once we try to hit our second one, Forgeony comes out, and here you can see its normal form. But not for long, because Nomeo is about to take it out with Earth Power. Then Ferrothorn gets put to sleep with Flamethrower. King Ambit comes out again, and this time he's able to Sucker Punch and hit an Iron Head on Nomeo to leave it with 4 HP. Luckily, Earth Power was enough to take it down and swap into Gorlork, who is able to take down my Giant, but one last Wood Hammer from Boo clears it up, and that is Steven defeated, which means we have defeated Pokemon Emerald Z with only Fakemon, and I had a ton of fun with it. I really enjoyed playing through the Hoenn region all scrambled up with the gym leaders in different places. I think we need more games that do that. I would love to see something like this in Kanto. It really spices things up and makes you wonder what the next challenge is going to be. I also really like the added areas where you can get more encounters, and the Fakemon are just absolutely amazing. I feel like I created an awesome team, and even if you don't use the Pokemon I use, I think there is plenty left for you to have fun and create something unique and special. However, what is holding this game back for me is the quality of life. There is basically none of it, and with that I mean no real way to grind XP, no HM thing. TMs are not infinite, and I know this is not necessary, but personally I really like this in ROM hacks, and that kind of brings it down for me to a 7.7 out of 10. But let me know what you thought of Emerald Z in the comments down below. I'd love to see your opinions, but I'd love it even more to thank my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. It always goes a long way, and it really helps me out. So if you want to do so yourself, you can click the links in the description. And as always, people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwiggo, and I'll see you all next time.